In less than a decade, the smartphone has become, and still remains in a way, mankind's new robotic appendage. It is considered a modern necessity, a societal multi-tool to navigate through and stay afloat in this digital age we live in. It is recognized as a portal to infinite knowledge, entertainment, connections, possibilities. Great, right? Well, not exactly. What many are eerily discovering, however, is that this robotic appendage is cancerous, and what's worse, it's become so vital to our being that it's unremovable. At least, that's what they tell you. Hey y'all, welcome back to Alternatively. So in this video, I'm not going to be talking about why the smartphone is a problem. If you clicked on this video, then you probably already have a good idea of why it is a problem to one degree or another. Instead, I'm going to share with you a highly effective cure that the Lord has opened my eyes to help me rid myself of this cancerous limb forever. Do understand, however, that this wasn't easy. A part of the procedure includes an amputation, so it will be painful, at least at first. But I can guarantee that if you're serious about getting rid of your phone and finding freedom from your device, and you take the plunge, you won't regret a second of the pain. So there's no surprise that like 6.93 billion people, which translates to 86% of the world's population, I too owned a smartphone. And furthermore, like a large percentage of that large percentage of people, I had become a slave to its addictive power. This modern miracle tool, which was sold to me labeled as a servant dedicated to greatly enhancing my life, had instead cunningly proved itself to be a cruel and demanding master, taking both my time and my life. But what could I do? It was like the founding fathers of the United States choked out when they were talking about the government, when they said, it is a necessary evil. So instead of ridding myself of it, I tried to control it. I would put limits on my screen time, but whenever that little hourglass popped up, I would just put in my password again so I could get more time. And when I would delete most of my apps to prevent any temptation for me to pick it up, I would find myself re-downloading them again just a few days later. I discovered the unfortunate truth that escape is futile. Or is it? For me, the smartphone was like an addiction. I hated that every second of the day I felt like I had to pick it up, and I hated that I was so dependent upon its usage. But just like any addict will tell you, just because you hate it doesn't mean you stop doing it. I would come up with all these different battle plans on how I was going to escape this addictive mentality when it comes to the smartphone. But just like the plans that I had mentioned before, they all fell within a matter of days. So after a lot of getting beat up and failing time and time again, I decided, you know what, it's time to make a change. I have to do something about it, or else I'm just going to be stuck in this rut for the rest of my life. And so that's when I started looking into other alternatives. I began to look at what other people were doing, and surprisingly, there weren't a lot of people who were doing anything different. Most of them were just showing on how to make your phone light so that it's as unaddictive as possible, but still gives you the ability to, keep your actual smartphone. And just like those other methods that I tried, it just didn't work for me. Because again, I had my own passwords. So, eventually I would just re-download that stuff back, and then I would be back at square one. But then I happened upon this little group of people that were adopting this thing called the dumb phone. Basically what a dumb phone is anything that doesn't have internet or apps or anything that your modern smartphone has. It's not a computer in your pocket. It's just a flip phone. Most people actually do just downgrade to flip phones and go back to the early 2000s. And so what was great is they were super cheap. I mean, for a modern one, it was like $100. And so I was set on that for a while, but then I started a new job. And that job required that I had certain apps so that I could clock in and clock out, so all of that sort of stuff. And so then at that point, it was impossible. Unless I just quit my job and found somewhere else to work, I literally just could not get rid of my phone. So I kind of just lived with it, tried all those methods again, and still ran into the same results, but I figured that it wasn't worth losing my job over. So I kind of just lived with it. And at the same time, I was always so busy that I was hardly ever on the phone anyways. But a few months later, I made my way up the company a pretty good bit, and I was able to get my own personal company iPad, which held all the apps that I needed, which allowed me to be able to get rid of my phone if I wanted to, because now I could keep my job because I could still clock in and, control payroll and email clients and all that sort of stuff without having to use my own personal smartphone for it. And so I kind of put it on the back burner and was still looking stuff up in the background, like different, flip phones to get and different alternatives to the smartphone thing. But then one day when I got home from work, I was again looking through different alternatives, and a little something popped up that caught my eye. And as I looked more and more into it, I was like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. This is not a flip phone, but it's also not a smartphone. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of talk around it, and there wasn't a lot of videos on it either. Most of the information that I got from it was from the main webpage. And the more I looked at it, the more hooked I was. And it was this little thing called the light phone. Some of you may have heard of it. It has grown in popularity in recent months, actually, and more people are talking about it, which is amazing. But for those of you who don't know, the light phone is basically a flip phone in a smartphone body. In the light phone's about page, the creators write, "Light was born as an alternative to the tech monopolies that are fighting more and more aggressively for our time and attention. Light creates tools that respect you, objects that empower you to be your best self, technology intentionally designed to be used as little as possible, things that serve you, not the other way around." This hooked me because it was surprising to see people who actually identified this problem and were willing to put in the work and effort to fix it. I also thought that it was amazing that they were trying to combat this fight for our attention. And I also like that they added that this device is made specifically to serve you and not the other way around. Now, there was only one catch to this phone. There was no returns. And the reasoning is fair. In the about page of their website, they say, "As a super small company, we can only currently take returns for manufacturer defects. This means that we cannot accept returns for simply being disappointed in the product or no longer interested. Thank you for your understanding." And this makes a lot of sense because a lot of people are emotionally driven when they buy this thing. But for me, especially because there wasn't a lot of information on it at the time, it was a little bit scary. But I prayed about it and I thought about it, and I was like, this is $300, could be $300 well spent, and I'm willing to risk $300 to help me escape from this grasp of my smartphone. And so I purchased it. I told myself that I'll put this on trial for 30 days. I'm going to try it and see if it works, especially with my job and stuff, because I still had to make calls and texts and everything. But my main goal was to completely ditch my phone forever and just keep this as my go-to phone. So at first, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like I said in the beginning, it was practically like having an amputation. It was almost like being used to having two arms, but now you only have one. So it's definitely something that you have to get used to. And it can take a while because there's a lot of adjusting to do. I will be honest with you, it was kind of frustrating at the beginning. Texting was super hard because I have larger thumbs, and it constantly wanted to press the wrong button. When dispatch had sent me an address that I needed to go to for my next job, I couldn't just click the address and all of a sudden now I had maps popped up. I actually had to go and put it onto my iPad and then, set up my big clunky iPad on my van windshield because I didn't have a stand at the time, and, kind of drive crazily like that. And also when they would send me like a client's number, or they would send me one of my coworkers' numbers, couldn't just go in and click the contact. It was a whole like rigmarole of a system. Like I had to take a picture of the contact number and name on my iPad. I then had to go into photos, take my phone, then switch over to adding a phone number, and then I had to copy what was on the iPad screen. And another thing that was difficult is I was very used to, during lunchtime, just sitting down and enjoying a quick YouTube video or something like that. And now I couldn't do that. I couldn't sit there and scroll through Instagram. I couldn't sit there and scroll through YouTube Shorts. And so I kind of just had to sit there and enjoy my lunch and kind of like look around and stuff. Now, later on, they did actually add a podcast tool, which I thought was nice because with as much driving and stuff that I did, it is nice from time to time to have something, to listen to in the background. But even through all the inconveniences, I was dedicated to sticking with this phone, no matter how much it made me hate it. Another thing at the beginning was that I was still in the habit of picking this thing up. Like I said, like at lunchtime, I'd sit there, pick it up, turn it on, and look at it, hit the little home button, look at it, see my contacts, turn it off, and put it back down, because there's literally nothing to do on this phone. Like, it gives you absolutely no dopamine hit, absolutely no gratification. It sometimes will purposely make you annoyed, which I mean, if you think about it, an addict is the exact same way. Like, if you take away that substance that they're addicted to, they start to get annoyed when they don't have instant access to it. And so, in a way, this is almost like rehab for those with a phone addiction. But over time, it became easier and easier and easier. I began to actually forget that I had a phone. I would have to remind myself, like during the day, that I need to check it to see if I've gotten any sort of texts or calls or anything like that. And now it's gotten to the point to where I will go days without checking it, or sometimes it'll just, sit dead because I just forgot to plug it up. When you first take the plunge to really try this out and dedicate yourself to adopting this inconvenience, you unknowingly begin to find more time to do things. And by unknowingly, I mean when you're growing up, like as you're growing, like you don't notice that you're growing, but when you look back at the pictures of yourself, you know that there's been a growth there. And for me, the light phone has been that same way. When I first started out, I didn't feel like I was gaining any time back. I didn't feel like I was any more free than I was before, until I began to realize all the things that I actually now was doing. Like before, I would never practice the guitar, and now all of a sudden I was, getting pretty good at it. But I never noticed that I was starting to practice the guitar more because it was so gradual. I also noticed that my attention span had slowly grown over time. And so now I was able to consume larger books, and I was able to consume larger content because I wasn't constantly training my brain to eat YouTube shorts or Instagram posts or all that sort of stuff. Like there wasn't that instant gratification that you get with a typical smartphone. And again, that was gradual. Like it wasn't just it happened overnight, but it was a natural effect of not being exposed to that day after day. And so needless to say, as you can see here, I have stuck with it for over 8 months now, which is super surprising. I didn't think that I was going to be able to get this far. I knew that, I wanted to get this far, but the probability of it actually getting done, I thought was rather slim because I didn't know that there was a way that you could live without a smartphone in modern society. But I am living proof that it can be done and that you can do it too. And if you do decide to take on this inconvenience of a phone, I can guarantee you that it will change your life to one degree or another. That degree is up to you. I've seen some people who use their smartphone during the week and then they use their light phone during the weekends, which is perfectly fine. But I think that you're still dancing around the fire, especially if you have an addiction to it. And so, as I always quote on this channel, as the Lord Jesus said, he said that if your right eye causes you to sin, it's better to pluck it out and throw it away from you, for it is better to lose one of your members than for your entire body to be thrown into hell. And that alone was the backbone that caused me to completely get rid of my phone forever and risk spending $300 on this because I knew that I was not glorifying the Lord in my life as long as I had this phone on me constantly. I was not glorifying him in my time. I was not glorifying him in the things that I was seeing and the things that I was hearing. I was not glorifying him in any way, and it was doing nothing but damage to my life. And so I knew that I had to take the change. I knew that I had to pluck my eye out, as the Lord would say. Because honestly, if you look at it in today's world, it's kind of like plucking out your eye. Like it's a modern necessity. Like everybody tells you have to have a smartphone. Like you can't survive in this world without a smartphone. It is practically your social security number. But once you come to the realization that Christ is the only thing that you need, and that everything else is secondary, and if anything, no matter how necessary it may seem, if it causes you to stumble and it causes you to sin, it is better for you to pluck it out and cast it away from you than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. But for those who are serious and want to be freed from this electronic bondage, there is an alternative, and I'm living proof that it works. If you are interested in the light phone and you want to learn more about it, or you're even thinking about going ahead and purchasing it, I will leave a link in the description to their website. Now, this link is an affiliate link, so if you do purchase anything from that website, I will get a small kickback for it. But I will never, ever, ever recommend any product that I do not 100% believe in. But my hope is that people will start to recognize these alternatives, even if it's not the light phone, if it's, something else like a flip phone or whatever, that there begins to be a revolution of people who are going to say no to these big tech companies and no to these social media platforms that are constantly trying to drain you of every ounce of life for that extra dollar. And I hope and pray that those of you who do experience this as an addiction, that you guys do break free from it, and that you trust the Lord when he says he will be faithful to those who are faithful to him. And always remember that there is no cost higher than that of your soul. No matter what they tell you, And no matter what you hear, there is always an alternative. And that is what this whole entire channel is about, to give you guys godly and healthy alternatives to these oppressive lies that they've pushed on us. But as usual, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. It helps me out so much, and I appreciate all the feedback that you guys have been giving me on my previous videos. If there's anything that you want to see or any questions that you have that you'd like me to take a look at and possibly cover, please leave it down in the comments, and I will definitely take a look at it and put it on my bucket list on things to cover. But as always, glorify Yahweh and burn the boxes. See y'all next time.